Round Valley, isn't Round Valley parts of around Covelo being evacuated?
Yes, and from what I understand is they have actual evacuation centers set up in Covelo, but there's a lot of areas around Covelo that are evacuated.
Because they can't come south into Willits, so.
Basically, anything east of Covelo in the Mendocino National Forest has been evacuated.
Yeah.
The actual Covelo Round Valley itself is not under an evacuation order yet.
But it definitely is an interesting feeling to feel like I've got fire on 3 sides at this point. I can't even imagine how it feels in Covelo because they're just tucked right into the middle of it. And this morning there was a little scare where there were some small spot fires reported out on Branscombe, which would be my sort of other way out. And so that was a little alarming early this morning, but it apparently got resolved pretty quickly.
Yeah, those small fires are going to happen right now with, with this inversion layer that's laying over everything. It's keeping everything pretty mild.
Yeah.
It's also keeping the temperatures down and the humidity up, which helps to keep things from getting too dramatically out of control. It's when the wind is on it and the sun is on it that you got to look out.
Right.
This thing that happened up here in Brook Trails here a couple days ago that's got us in such trouble here. If that had happened on a day with 20, 25, 30 mile an hour northeast winds, Brook Trails wouldn't be here today.
Right. Well, and in fact, they originally were anticipating some of those higher winds that evening, I believe. And like you said, because of this inversion layer, that didn't end up happening. Thank goodness.
Well, those winds were actually predicted to happen Sonoma County south.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was some miscommunication there. That there was some concern that that wind event was going to happen further north. And as it turns out, what their predicted wind did occur, and it happened further south. We were just fortunate that their prediction was accurate for a change.
Alex, we are ready to go.
Okay, so I think it's 5 o'clock, right? 5:02. Okay, so let's go ahead and call the meeting to order, and I'll get a report out of closed session from you first, Mark, and then we'll go on with approving the agenda.
Yeah, we had 2 items in closed session, and it involved 4 employees. 2 were unpaid leaves based on personal situations, which we granted, and 2 were retirements, and both of them needed to be waived. One was for the date of retirement, and the other one was for years to be prorated. But the board unanimously approved those, and so those items will now get processed by Nikki and Linda Walker and Laura.
Okay, thank you. Like a motion to approve the agenda. Understand that we're striking items D, approval of the GAN limit resolution for 2020-2021, and approval of the unaudited actuals for 2019-20. Both of those will be brought back to the board for the meeting that we have later on in the month. This month we will have 2 meetings. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda.
A second?
I second it.
Seconded by Paula. Any discussion on the agenda? Understanding we are striking items D and E. Hearing no discussion, a call for the vote. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on, we'll have the flag salute by Mr. Chavez, please. And if everyone would please mute your mics.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. And we're to the hot seat count, Mr. Westerberg.
Yeah, we have right now, I'm going to do a screen share and I can show you our count. Does everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. Those are our current enrollments. And remember that last year we were about 40 more students than this year. I'm not overly concerned that we're down 40. I don't know what that 40 represents. Is it people choosing not to come to school who have moved, whatever? We'll figure that out as we get back into the school year. We have other things to look at right now. We're being held harmless to our P2 enrollment. So at this point, I think we're in, we know what we have right now. And we're fairly close to where we were last year. So there aren't any dramatic differences. Probably the lowest number in this is Brookside is unusually low compared to what it normally is. That's where I first see the lowest number. All the other buildings tend to be fairly similar, but Brookside tends to be low, and I'm not sure what that's in regards to. The high school's down a little bit, and Brookside is down a little bit. And I don't know what that's the rationale at this point.
What a big third grade.
What's that?
What a big third grade.
Yeah, that or are parents choosing to hold their child back if they're in that young 5 area. That's probably a potential as well. So, but that's our current enrollment. As I said, we're pretty close. I'm not overly concerned at this point about it, but it is something to think about.
Yeah, junior and senior classes actually look like they're quite low.
Yeah. Well, but remember, Sanhedrin is high.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah. So even though they're high, Sanhedrin is up.
Got it. Okay.
I guess-
Sherwood. What do you got at Sherwood? 83?
Yeah. Remember that Sherwood is going to include all the independent study who are K-8.
Right.
Sherwood is our independent study site for K-8. So that number is slightly higher than what you would think it is.
Okay. Any other discussion on that, on the hot seat count?
No?
Okay, moving on to WTA Proposition 15.
Amy, is that you? Who's going to do that?
I think we're going to postpone it till next time. Tessa was going to do it, and I think with her being displaced for a couple days, it's kind of thrown her for a little bit of a loop. So
Okay,
sorry about that.
that's okay. We had talked before about this at an earlier board meeting, and Tessa had mentioned that she wanted WTA to present on Prop 15. And so we left this time open. So I'm assuming, Trina, that we would use that at our meeting in the end of September.
I will email Tessa and ask her which she prefers, either the September or October date.
Right. Okay.
Thank you, Don.
Okay, moving on to WTA comments.
Dawn, is that you?
I guess I could do that because I thought Tessa was going to join here today. We have reached out and welcomed all the new teachers. We have been reaching out to the staff who's evacuated just to make sure everybody's okay and has a safe place to be. I know the teachers have been reaching out to their students as well. This is a crazy time for us again. So I don't know, we're just trying to move forward. We're excited to get back and actually get to teach.
Yeah.
For 3rd and 4th grade, we were getting ready to start on Tuesday after we met with all the families. So anyways. So that's it. Unless
thank you.
Brian or Amy wants to add something.
We did have Blosser Hotel last night and tonight, and the office is a hotel. There were teachers staying in their rooms at pretty much every site, which is just fine. But the high school evacuation site we still have plenty of room at the high school for folks, so.
Okay. Did Amy want to chime in there?
I don't have anything. We're just, patiently waiting for Brook Trails to repopulate so that maybe we can get back to teaching or start teaching. I'm ready.
Yeah, I hear that.
By the way, while the meeting's going on, you'll probably get an announcement that we are closing for Thursday and Friday.
That's the ring right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's
How's that for timing?
some of us are optimistic about getting back into Brook Trails probably late tomorrow or at least sometime on Friday. CSCA comments. Is Dan out there? Anybody out there for CSCA?
Just a note real quick for WTA and really for everybody in the board. The group was supposed to meet again as a recommendation, the committee for all the COVID resources, and it was canceled by Mark, I'm assuming because of all the smoke and chaos we're in. So that meeting needs to be reposted so we can continue following the guidelines.
Well, I did send out a note to everybody with information requesting that they send me an email with ideas they've talked to their groups with, because, we're now no session through Friday. We got to start to get the ideas put together. We're on a 20-day window now.
That is true, which is why we talked about doing that earlier, and we said start school first. Our window keeps getting shortened. I think we need to get some input from the public, which we don't have anybody on that board yet.
Well, that board is not the only example of groups that I meet with. That is the group that the teachers wanted to have, and a group that represents a lot of the areas. But I have plenty of input from public. I have plenty of input from other parents and plenty of input from people who aren't even parents. So that list that I gave was certainly not just from the group that we met with. That was from lots of folks. This is exactly like LCAP.
Exactly, but none of us know, of course, what all those other things are because they're not posted publicly.
I just sent them out to you.
Well, what are the other groups that you're talking about that are referring information to you?
I've met with Rotary, I've met with Chamber, I meet with parents and students and staff all the time. This is exactly the same process as LCAP. And WTA hasn't been involved in LCAP in 4 years, except Dawn and Tessa came last year. But it's exactly the same process. This happens to be a committee that I'm working with that had a specific arrangement with WTA, and they had some constituent groups with it, but it certainly doesn't cover the entire district.
Right. We just want to make sure that you are following the protocols that have been set forth for the monies.
Consider that done.
And Brian, just to let you know as well, the same as with LCAP, what we anticipate is that the auditors also review to ensure that those processes happen. So
But that's after the fact. We don't want an after the fact auditor. We want to make sure that it's done properly the first time.
Of course, I'm just stating that as Mark said, it is the same as with the LCAP process. So there is a formalized review of that by our independent auditors as well. I understand what you mean about being in anticipation rather than after the fact, but that is another part of the process as well.
Yeah, and I don't think site rep has started yet either. Site council, excuse me. So I just want to make sure all the right people are meant to be given voice are given the voice. We have some history of a lack of collaboration. And so I'd like to see the collaboration improved and be way more open so that all the members and people that are involved in it understand what the other members are saying rather than just being filtered just through Mark.
Well,
One of the, oh,
go ahead.
well, one of the things that we used to have an issue with in the past is that the meetings weren't particularly publicized. Even though you had the committee, so to speak, it was supposed to be open to everyone. And people like to go and they didn't always know until, 20 minutes before, oh, there, you can come if you want. That was a big part of the issue. They knew they couldn't vote, but they expected to be able to express themselves as to what they felt would behoove their grade level, their site, their whatever, And we did have some teachers who were also parent representatives, and it just kind of got lost. So if I lost the notification that the meetings were going to happen. So if maybe that could be sort of more public than it used to be, it would be a lot easier. Even if it was an MO out to all district staff or out to everyone on the, the agenda list, something so that you at least have had the opportunity to know. And sometimes it helps when a person who has opinions, and let's pretend they're telling me, it's good for the person who told me not to expect only me to speak for them. And so they should come to a meeting. And when they tell you, well, I don't know when it is or how to do it, that's what makes it real difficult.
Yeah, I mean, we have
Site council too.
our WUSD page is where we announce everything. I've yet to see it on that page.
Yeah, we'll see something public. That would be good.
Public, for the public to know that this it even exists, really.
Exactly.
Actually, that would actually be a good thing to post it on there, so that anybody in the community could actually
Voice themselves.
speak to it. You bet.
And then the other thing is we also have no idea. We've asked for it last Friday. No idea how much money has actually been spent of that monies yet, because that's another. Once you realize how much has been spent, then you can actually start prioritizing the next monies to be spent. And so, if everybody's in the dark, we can't find the light. So we need to have.
I'm doing my best to be very honest with you. I'm doing my best in really difficult conditions, trying to get the books closed for last year, and it's difficult to prioritize that. There is no intention for lack of transparency. I'm just extremely overwhelmed. I had to do an entire budget update over the summer, which is not normally part of our cycle. And, there's a lot going on, and I'm really trying to get to everything. So I do apologize for that.
I'm far more concerned about ideas than I am where we're at financially, because we can make adjustments to this plan even once it's in place. It's just like the LCAP. If we find out in, October, we wish we would have done something else, we can make an adjustment to the plan. It's not a one and done deal.
We meaning the board, or we? Who's we?
Well, the board and I. All I get is input from folks, but I have to put the plan together based on the input I get, and the board approves the plan. Adjustments to the plan happen really through me and through Nikki, and generally not even through board, because there are things that fit underneath the plan. Generally, you write the plan for more than what you're going to get. And hopefully you'll have money available to do that. That would be the intention with this. The note I put out already to that group and to the board, you'll see that the dollar figure on my estimates is already higher than what we're getting. And that for sure is not everybody's ideas, because 3 of the people on the committee have already sent me additional stuff that they didn't talk about yet. So I'm anticipating the group's going to send me more than that. But I do have to set a short time frame on it, because this is a 20-some page plan that's got to be done and sent to the county at the end of the month. So.
And the county has the ability to request revisions to that plan as well.
Right.
So.
As does the committee and the public.
And
They
so what I I saw somewhere was the budget of money that, you know, that we would at least start with, right? And it was the same as LCAP or a little less, plus the 4% or something extra for one emergency fund and some other from another emergency fund. Are you going to show us that paper, do you think? You must have emailed it to us because I can't.
I did.
Oh,
It was
okay.
in that, you saw part of it, I know, Paula, because we were talking about the list.
Yeah.
It's at
yeah.
the bottom of that list. It shows
Okay.
you the 3 different funds in the total.
Right?
Right. Okay. It's just that that's on the computer and I can't do both.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
okay.
it's about 1.4.
Okay.
I had a comment about the 1.4 that I was concerned about. This is Amy. The special education funding is $492,424.
Okay.
And that is not included in the amount of the list that you gave us when there's sped money or sped items possibly on your list that could go to the sped money. I understand that we're wanting to use it for IEPs, but this money has to be spent by December 30th. So I would like to include the sped money with the full total, which would be $1.8 million. So that
Can I get clarification on what this $400,000 is that you're referring to?
It's called the Project Stimulus Funding for Special Education. And then there's also the Project Stimulus Funding for High Needs, which is the 1.1 million. And then there's the direct funding stimulus, direct federal stimulus funding that is a 381,000. All of those count up to the 1.8 million. So in the meeting that we had with the committee, it was said that we are not discussing the special education funding because that is done through IEPs. And I asked that this is all up front, that we talk about the special education money with the committee and how it's going to be spent, and that there are things for special education that are needed, like Chromebooks and technology that could come out of the regular fund and put into the sped money. And so I don't understand why that is not transparent and included in our list. Because it's not just 1.4, it's 1.8.
Well, my understanding is always the same with special ed. It's mandated through IEPs. Their numbers are mandated. And it's my understanding that all of our special ed money in regards to this is spoken for. Things we were going to do beyond that were beyond my list. But
Then I guess we need a list of those items that has already been spent so that it can be listed out so it's all transparent. Whether it's Chromebooks for those people, whether it's speech to text, you know, all the other things that our special ed kids need, it should be transparent.
Right, we should be able to see all that money, all 492,424. If it's your understanding that it's already been postmarked for something, then we should be able to see how that number matches up.
well, you can see $20 million worth if you want, because the budget's already been put out. So you're more than welcome to look at that too. I mean,
Well, that's
the
what
reality is we're not hiding a bunch of money in a safe.
Well, we're asking for all those numbers so we can see it.
So whatever, okay.
Can you say what that name of that particular fund is one more time?
Yes, it is called the Project Stimulus Funding Special Education, directly from online through the state. And it gives me what the charter school gets, what every school in California receives. It's all in a spreadsheet.
It also gives you the percentage change.
It was 4%.
Right, 4%.
And how much we got for 2020, 2021, we received $14,967,000 for our proposed state funding. And then all of this money extra is lined out in 3 different sections. Like you said before, Nikki, it's put into 3 different
Right.
monies, and you have to have it fit under that category. So some from the federal and some from the state.
I guess I need to do some additional research because the only page that I have found and the only information I've been sent is those 3 categories totaling the 1.4. I have not seen anything that showed the 1.4 plus an additional amount for special ed. So there's
So I'll
some
tell you, do you want
research
to
that I'm-
write down these numbers? So the direct federal stimulus funding is $381,616. The project.
Okay, so is that the ESSER funding, or is that part of the CARES funding?
This is part of the CARES funding, but I don't know the ERES. So this is I could send you the link from online.
It's under
But
the umbrella of CARES Act.
it's through the CARES Act, and it's state funding for all schools of California.
Nikki, is it possible that flows through SELPA?
I suppose it's possible, but I've gotten no notification from SELPA for any additional amount.
Well, it's called the
Bond,
project stimulus. There's 2 categories under project stimulus funding. One's high needs and one's special education. And then there's a federal stimulus funding that's the 3rd one.
Okay. Well, like I said, I will have to do looking at that. There's nothing else I can offer on that just because you guys are bringing something new to my attention. So.
All right.
So I guess with that information, I think that's why we're worried about the understanding of all the monies, and we want to know exactly where it's been spent so far to date or under that umbrella, so that we can be even more responsible than what's happened so far with how they're spent in the future.
Okay, we ready to move on? I'm looking for CSEA comments. Is there anybody from CSEA in the meeting? Not hearing any, we'll move on to board comments. And we'll start with Paula.
Okay. I had this list and I lost it, so you'll have to just get it this way. What I've done is I've looked around at the schools. I've spent some time at the high school, and it's everything went well that I understand about cleaning and doing all the rest of the stuff. There were some issues with some supplies that I think they took care of. They, I don't know, they seem to be okay. All the kids I've spoken with have their Chromebooks or whatever. And that applied to all the school kids that I talked to, except the kindergarten. A lot of them are just real disappointed that they didn't go to a real school, but they'll get over it. And then I did have some concerns with Proposition 15. I really would like us to get started on discussing that and deciding to support it as a board or whatever as soon as possible. I'm hoping that when it's just been decided that it will go to the next meeting, we're talking about the 30th of September as opposed to the 2nd week of October, just because ballots come out, the absentee ballots are supposed to be sent out in California on the 1st of October or close.
The
And
5th,
I'd hate to see us, excuse me?
I believe it's the 5th.
Is it the 5th? Oh, okay, well, so I'd hate to have people make their decisions, and there seems to be quite a rush to get their ballot and go, you know, vote it, mail it, and be done so that it's for sure counted, et cetera, as opposed to, and not having all the information they might need, as opposed to waiting until more and more time pass.
Our second board meeting is scheduled for the 28th.
What did I say?
You
The
said the
30th?
30th.
I'm sorry that I have the problem on the 30th and the
Okay.
29th, so it's
It's on
good, yeah.
Monday.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. And also I had some concerns. People seem to be mixing up what is the proposition or the measure for the city and the measure for the school. So probably stuff will, I mean, I know some things are coming out in the newspaper, but that's something else that we might need to make sure when we talk to people that it's different. You know, it's not Measure I as a 1% included tax for the city or whatever, that there's just some confusion, and I know I'm not going to get to everybody anyway. And so then what else did I have to tell you? Oh, there was the issue with the dogs, I understand, with animals on the campuses. And now I'm trusting it's because of the emergency. That rule's been sort of suspended. And so the rule I heard was that no, the animals from the community do get to be on the grounds. They don't belong in classrooms. But now we're suspending that, I would imagine, because people are evaluated to the schools, evacuated, gosh, it's happening. Anyway, and so some people need to be real clear about that because it sort of causes a problem. And then I had a question about, given the air conditions and the quality of the air, I hear there's a number of people wanting to smoke, etc., at the high school and at other places that are public. And yet I've been told that there's nothing that can be done because it's an emergency situation. I wondered if that was really the case. To me, it's not at all like the emergency for animals. It's a different emergency, Your animals you need to have if they are parts of your family. The cigarettes, you need to find a corner out in some street and take your ashtray, But anyway, I could use a little clarification. And at this minute, I like I said, I can't, I lost my list, so I'm done. Until I interrupt. No, sorry.
Mr. Chavez. Mr. Chavez.
Yeah, I just hope everybody out there is being safe. I appreciate what everyone's doing for everyone, but that's Willits, and that's the people I've come to know and love. The other thing is, my hat's off to all those people out there making this distance learning work. I did have a chance to eavesdrop on a couple of lessons that my daughters had because they were in the car with me and we were driving somewhere while they had their meeting with their teacher. And to listen to the teacher have to deal with the difficulty of technology and speak to her whole class at the same time, and the way she worked it and the way she accomplished the lesson, it was magical. So my hat's off to those teachers who are making this happen. It's difficult at best, but yet they're going above and beyond and bringing the magic to distance learning. So thank you so much, and thank everyone for all the work they're doing during this COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you. That's it.
Okay. Jeannie?
Hi, everybody. I also wanted to thank everybody for all that you have been doing in order to meet the kids' needs in this difficult time of getting things started in this distance learning, and also through this fire evacuation and all that, to be able to just sort of think on our feet. And anyway, I really appreciate everybody's hard work, and I'm going to be doing grandma duty on Thursdays with my grandkids, so I'll get a direct experience as to both at Bethel Grove and at Brookside how their experience with learning. So I'm looking forward to that. And I also want to appreciate very much the principal at Blosser and the principal at Bethel Grove, who make sure that we get the bulletin every Monday, even though we're not meeting in person. I really appreciate it. So thanks.
Mr. Colvin.
I want to say thank you to the teachers that have been working so hard to make this temporary format of education, make it work. And I want to publicly thank all of the firefighters for helping to keep us safe, and to wish everybody a safe rest of the week. And hopefully we'll be closer to the way we were last week, next week. So be safe. Thank you.
Yeah, for myself, I'll echo those same comments that the rest of the board has said. Some of the distance education models that you guys were putting out, the virtual classrooms and things were very impressive, and obviously no substitute for in-classroom learning, but certainly far better than what we could be looking at. Certainly appreciate all the effort that all the teachers have put in. I'm still up here in Brook Trails. Got to see the sun disappear at 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, as it would look like it was midnight. It's pretty impressive. I haven't seen that on in our community in my lifetime, but in my fire service career, I got to experience it a number of times over the years, and it was always with some of these very, very large fires. It's scary, to say the very least, for most people, but our firefighters have, I think, got a pretty good handle on this. In talking with some of these folks during some of these meetings, it sounds like they've got a pretty good handle on it. And as long as this inversion layer hangs in there for a little bit longer and the temperatures stay a little cooler without any major wind, we're going to dodge a bullet. So again, my thanks to those folks. With respect to the comments on the CARES Act funding and the budgets and so forth, if Mark would be kind enough to work on Mark and Nikki would be kind enough to put together something that actually does show what current expenditures have been, so we can keep that transparent. Certainly want to make sure that stays out there. And it'd also be nice if you could put together like a list of the individuals and personnel that you've got that actually meet the requirements for the committees that you're working with, so that we can dot our I's, cross our T's, make sure that everybody is well informed that we are being, one, transparent, and two, that we are meeting the obligations and the requirements that the state and the Fed put on the money. And then the last part about it is I'd be tickled to death if there was another $400,000 out there that we hadn't realized it was coming to us. So hopefully that is indeed the case. So I'll move on to superintendent comments.
Alex, I'm going to have you respond to these maps because you'll give the firemen terminology that it needs.
Okay.
So does everybody see that?
Yeah, there's what you're actually seeing in red is the mandatory evacuation zone. Interesting, in California, a mandatory evacuation actually means that if you leave, you don't get to come back. If you stay, your home is your castle and they can't actually kick you out. Now, what I did is I packed up my truck up here with all of my valuables, and with the intent of leaving just as soon as I got to see any kind of significant fire moving my direction. I have no intention of staying here and being a hero. With respect to the evacuations, I got to tell you that in my career as a firefighter, we learned long ago that people that stay in their homes when they should have evacuated produce or create another threat that is very difficult for us to manage. It is very difficult for us to actually fight fire and protect homes when we actually have to deal with life safety issues and save lives. If you're not in your home, we have a much better chance of protecting the entire area, including your home. So keep that in the back of your mind. The yellow areas are evacuation warning areas. Those people should be ready to evacuate basically on a moment's notice if that notice comes to you.
I want to show you this too.
Yeah, there you go. So what you're seeing there on the lower portion around, it says zone 11, zone 6, that's all Brook Trails area, that very lower center section. The section over on the far right, that's on the other side of Covelo, that's the August complex, and that's what's actually providing most of the smoke that we've had, and that huge inversion layer that we're having over a huge portion of Northern California. That inversion layer is actually what's allowing many of these fires, these smaller fires like the one we have here just north of us and just north and east of Brook Trails is the one that, I mean, that's actually it's helping to suppress that. That inversion layer keeps the humidity high, keeps the temperatures low, keeps the sun off the fire. But again, the inversion layer can, once it breaks through and disappears, then fire can get much more active very quickly. In talking with the CAL FIRE folks, they said this morning at about 9:30, 9:40, they had about 10% containment on the fire that was threatening us. Expect those numbers to dramatically increase by tomorrow morning. And once again, that would be the reason why they'll start allowing people back into Brick Trails. The priorities that they told us today was that they wanted to get 101 opened north. Obviously, it's been closed north and south bound traffic just north of Willits, where the fire jumped the road. And their other priority was to get Brick Trails repopulated. So again, I expect if those containment numbers increase, expect Brick Trails to probably get repopulated tomorrow and probably no later than Friday at some point. The air quality in our area is not likely to improve anytime soon because of the size of some of these fires that are continuing to burn. The August complex is heading towards Covelo and moving to the west, and will sooner or later will break out of the Mendocino National Forest. CAL FIRE claims that they are sending resources up there to hopefully manage that portion of the fire as it comes into CAL FIRE territory. So that's really all I can kind of tell you back about that. We are likely to have poor air quality for quite a while. Hopefully, and the only reason that we're going to get better air quality is if the winds increase. And the unfortunate thing about that is if the winds increase, then we also have increased fire danger. So, and increased fire activity in the fires that are actually out there. So, it's best I can offer, Mark.
Thanks, Alex. I wanted you to do that. You do a much better job than I'm going to do of reporting on the fire. Even though I sit through the meetings, I understand it, but you've lived it. So I appreciate that. Measure I, there are signs going to be going out. There has been an article already gone out in the paper. There's going to be much more about it in the next 3 weeks, because Paul is right. The issue is October 5, lots of people are going to be getting their ballots, and our illustrious president has scared everybody into mail-in voting that they're going to get it in quick as possible. So we want to make sure that we have our data out there. We have basically a month to make sure it gets out there. Unfortunately, the city is going for an increase in taxes at the same time. I'm hoping that folks, we needed 8 votes last time. Based on our economy and what's going on, I sure don't want to be having to take 500,000 plus out to fix roofs on Blosser out of general fund. So I think it's really important. This is a long-term strategy for the district to have funds for 10 plus years to be able to fix and repair the facilities. So I'm hoping that comes to fruition, and we'll see where we go. Last time we had to wait till about 3 weeks after the election to really find out what the final end result was. So follow the dogs on campus. It's a kind of a unique situation when the Red Cross, or in this case, the county of Mendocino, come over and take over your facility. It's not that we can't have any say. It's just that they're kind of in charge. And we've addressed the issue of smoking. There are 2 people who I know of who we have this issue with. Both are very elderly gentlemen. One has some major issues, not physical. And the other gentleman has a lot of physical issues. And they've now sent them over to a spot where they're at for the smoking thing.
Oh, good.
I mean, they're pretty harmless. I'm not thrilled about it, but I'm also, it's not like they're out promoting smoking.
Yeah.
There happens to be a lot of people in parking lots with dogs because they don't want to shelter their dog. And so what they do is they keep their dog with them, but then they go sleep in their cars. So they have their dog leashed up with them, and then they go sleep in cars, but they get blankets and food and shower in the facility. So Red Cross or the county, neither one will let people in with animals unless it's a true service dog.
Oh.
So
Okay,
there's a
well,
gentleman there who has a dog with him who he basically living in his car, but doing everything else on campus. And I have to be honest, he's not problematic. It's not a pit bull. He's not doing that. And this is a pretty rough time for everybody. So, you know, unless
Yeah.
it's problematic, I think we're okay for right now.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I meant to clarify that I have heard wonderful, wonderful, wonderful things about all that the district is doing for the people who have housing issues right now, who are evacuated or whatever. But I do sort of have the attitude that the good will kind of take care of itself.
Yeah.
But it's just, some of it was kind of a scare. People were just sort of scared that they'd have a fire next to them at the safe house, so to speak. And, you know, it just, anyway, thank you. I appreciate that it's taken care of.
Right now, we're running breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah, that's
We have a custodian on staff for about 80% of the time. There's a little bit of gap between Miguel leaving and Kelly coming on, but it's like from midnight to 2 o'clock kind of thing. It's not a big deal. There is an admin on site 24/7. We've been rotating through that. You know, I'm hoping Friday afternoon or Friday evening, it will come to an end if the weather stays the way it is and things work out. But we've been rotating through that since Monday. So, and folks have been really good. Marie even got to take a turn. Kathleen's taken a turn. Kelly, myself, Mike, every administrator has been there. And so it's really, you know, it's just kind of the gig we need to do. We need to have somebody on site who knows the school and has keys. And so, distance learning wise, I think the staff's done a great job of getting ready for it and putting it out there. I know at Sherwood and other schools, there are very few connectivity issues from what I'm seeing. Most of the folks, especially 9-12, who have a connectivity issue, have already worked through the high school and are on an alternative packet program, as well as the Sanhedrin kids. Our numbers in independent study are higher than they've ever been, especially K-8, which is concerning because that number is probably going to grow if we go to some form of on-site learning. That's one of those wild cards that we've had through this whole pandemic is how are we going to staff independent study without knowing what the real number is? Because most people, parents who I talk to say, well, it depends on what it looks like. Well, I can't give them what the county's rules are going to be like when that happens. I do tell them, be prepared to be 6 feet away, be prepared to have a mask on, and be prepared that we're not going to be doing all normal interactions between students. And most of them kind of shrug their shoulders like that's not really what school should be. And I tell them, well, that's what it's going to be like in 2020, because I don't see any magic panacea coming that's going to change that anytime soon. In regards to air quality, we're off the chart right now in air quality as far as if we would have school and if we would be only inside. I mean, we were at like 433 or something yesterday. It was some astronomical number. But hopefully on Tuesday, you know, we're distance learning, so we're not going to have an air quality shutdown day. So, but other than that, you know, it's crazy year, super crazy year. And I tell people the movie Mad Max, the original movie, was staged in 2020. Maybe they weren't too far off.
All right. Public comments on the consent agenda items. Do we have any public comments on the consent agenda?
just one. The number 3, I would appreciate it if it could work out that when when employee status changes are made, if we could kind of decide, well, if it could be marked when teachers don't have full credentials, okay? Otherwise, if we're gonna leave them the way that they are, which may be necessary, I really would like a list of those with and those without.
Okay. I'm not, can I ask why?
Yeah, there's been a good deal of conversation, I've done at least half of it, on the ratio of teachers with and without proper credentials in our district, teachers with and without a credential as it is, and years of experience. So there's a little study going on. It's not at all a government-funded one, but, and I don't even know how scientific it's gonna end up. But people are real curious as to the percentages. Like last year, I could count them up and it was like 65% of our staff had 5 or less years of experience, 3 or less within the district, and 15% of them required waivers. And when the time comes that we test again, it's helpful to have a little understanding that maybe it is not the fault of the students or their economy, the economic status, or even the teachers. It is merely the way that it works when people are not experienced or don't have all the training necessary to be compared to people who do have experience or training. And it's just easier when you can say, nah, these people just need time, as opposed to, why doesn't Willits have better than this or that or this? And I don't like people guessing. I like concrete numbers.
Yeah, back when we get back to real testing,
Uh-huh.
it would be relatively easy, especially K-6, to determine who had credentialed and non-credentialed
Uh-huh.
in testing. I mean, we could do that. From our standpoint as a district office, we treat all the teachers the same regardless if they're credentialed or not.
Oh, no, that's good. I mean, that that has never come up as far as treatment or anything like that. And I do well, I don't know, I'm constantly telling people, of course, the district has a preference for full credentials, but they're not available. It's just.
It's the new way of the world with
Sorta.
shortage.
And that's why I think numbers would work out really well.
Yeah.
So
They're just concrete.
So Paul, are you asking for basically testing data for students based on whether or not the teacher has a certain amount of, whether or not they're credentialed or they have a certain amount of experience?
No, it's just that every year when we had regular testing, people go over test scores, right? And they say, oh, look, the 4th grade is testing at 60% and above. And this and that's happening. As a matter of fact, just last year, before things messed up in February, there was this big deal about, well, you know, collaboration days are really important, but, you know, you need to know that unless students make X amount of growth in a year, that, you know, we're not impressed with the idea of needing to collaborate. We're more impressed with the idea of there needing more academic time. I say we kind of liberally, meaning the board and the district, the board and the superintendent agreed to that particular type of philosophy. Okay, well, so when you're making decisions on test scores, you have to kind of look into why they are the score that they are. One of the factors could be absenteeism, so that was a real big deal. Another factor was, you know, well, according to the government, are they or aren't they foster kids? Are they or aren't they English learners? Are they or aren't they whatever cluster of things you can worry about? And another thing that needs to come to mind is years of experience, proper credentialing, things like that. I mean, I don't even know the teachers nowadays that work in our district particularly, but I do know that from every study I've ever read, more experience means better productivity because you are more confident, if for no other reason. And when you do have proper training, you produce better than when you're trying to figure it out on your own and take care of everything else along with you. And so I think it's handy to have those kinds of bits of information.
Well, Paula, I can give you that data for the 3 years prior to last year.
Oh, well, that's good. I'd like.
I have all the data from the testing and by teacher, by grade level.
No, I
And-
remember looking at some of it with
Yeah.
you, and I think that's good. I just didn't have the other piece that said, well, how many classes started with over half their class below a percentile? That's if we're going to study just the grades and the outcome. But if we're not going to get quite that particular, it'd be good to know this person was taught by 2 years of experience. This one was taught by 20 years of experience. This one was taught by, you know, I thought I'd like to be a teacher. How about giving me a part of that 3-year program? You know what I mean? That's,
I
there are
can
a
give
lot
you
of
that data
areas.
from our testing for the 3 years prior to last year. And I can tell you where they credentialed or where they not.
Well, out of sight, I'd love to
Yeah,
know about that.
yeah. Get
And
your
I know that
mask,
people like, excuse me, bring a mask.
bring your mask and come on in.
Okay. Are you around Friday?
I'm
I
here
don't
all the
mean to make
time.
this so public. Oh, okay. Well, I didn't see you yesterday, but okay.
Just call me.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. Then I didn't mean to take all your time.
No problem. Is there any other discussion on the consent agenda?
Nope. Then I don't care.
Like to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
And anybody going to second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's motion and seconded. Any further discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor of approving the
Aye.
consent agenda?
Oops, sorry.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you. We're item C, Charlie, approval of the Education Protection Act expenditure report for 2019-20. This is an annual thing for us. You want to give us a real brief overview, Mark?
Yeah, Nikki, this is kind of your gig. You want to go?
Well, actually, the conflict of interest, that goes back to the 700 forms.
All right. Oh, we're doing a conflict of interest. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at the, wait, are we doing conflict of interest?
No, we're on the Education Protection Act expenditure report.
Sorry, I'm doing it off of my phone. I'll hush
No
up.
problem.
Okay, so for the EPA, this is something that came into place, I believe it was in 2012. We had experienced statewide education funding cuts, and there was some funding that was restored to schools via some income and sales taxes. And so when those funds were restored to schools, they came with the requirement that the funds could not be used for administrative purposes. And so there's an ongoing requirement each year to show how the funds get used. And we, like almost every other district I've heard of, just use those funds for teacher salaries. So this report essentially just says how much did we receive and what was the use, and it was for teacher salaries. This dollar amount is a subset, a part of our total LCFF funding. So it's part of the overall calculation. It just has these parameters and reporting requirements. So it's just an annual formality that we have to do each year.
Got it. So do we have a motion to approve item C, Charlie?
I move that we approve item C.
I'll second.
Seconded. Any board discussion on item C?
Yep.
Hearing none. Call for the vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And carries. Let's see, Trina was talking about something just a minute ago with regard to the conflict of interest.
I apologize. That was in the consent agenda?
Yeah, I thought so.
Yes.
Okay. So
There were no changes. There were no changes in the in that.
yeah, it's just the annual check it and make sure everything's make sure that we're staying within our bounds with respect to any conflicts of interest. as a board. Okay. Get back to Zoom here. Okay, so agenda items for the next regular meeting. Anybody have anything specific they want to throw out there?
Yeah, can I get some more information, please, on independent study? Like maybe what is the cap? We now have 2 specific teachers for that, right? Didn't I read that?
Yeah, we've had 2 teachers for quite some time. The
Right.
cap is at 25.
Oh, okay, 25 per class load, right?
Yeah, 25 for the teacher, yes.
Yeah. So at this minute, then we're at about a 50 student cap?
Yeah, the
Okay,
high school's doing something a little bit differently with using partial parts of teacher schedules, but the true independent study run through Sanhedrin and through Sherwood, those 2 teachers have a 25 cap. My issue is not where we're at now, it's where we might be in 3 weeks from now.
Yeah, and so, oh, okay, I'm sorry. Alex, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, is there a cap for the district as a whole?
Well, there is a cap for independent study. I can't remember the number. It's something like 10%, isn't it, Nikki?
You know, that's not one I know offhand. I think.
Yeah, but there is, Alex, but they're going to waive that for this year. In the COVID world, they're not going to ding us for having excessive number on independent study.
Okay. You have further there, Paula? Okay. The only other question we contracted with a company to help us figure out what's going on with our solar stuff. Hopefully we can have that on our next board meeting.
Yeah, I tried to get a hold of him twice and he hasn't responded yet. I'll figure out what he's up to. We're also going to have on that agenda, we're going to have to use that as our approval for the LCCP plan.
You'll also have Proposition 15.
And we're going to need to have Prop 15 done. So you're going to have to talk with Tessa to see if she can do it in September instead of October.
Was there a?
If she can't, I'll do it. I just wasn't prepared for tonight, so.
No problem.
Yeah.
Was there a public comment section for the LCCP that had to be on a separate date? Because I know that you had to approve the plan on one day, and there was another element that they couldn't be together.
I'm not sure, Alex, are you confusing that in June when we have to have 2 separate meetings for the budget and the LCAP?
It's with this it's with the current CARES money that we've been discussing. I believe that those 2 things there has to be a public comment section on one meeting and then the actual approval of the plan on a separate meeting. At least I believe that to be the case. You might want to double check, make sure that's the case.
Yeah. Yeah. And I sat in on a meeting today and I know they're fighting that out in Sacramento right now because there's a lot of pushback on the December date.
Yeah, I think this December date doesn't make a lot of sense to me, as we've already discussed. So okay. I understand that they want this plan in place, but putting restrictions on spending it all by December 30th simply just doesn't make sense. They should just have you spend it on the things that you're only supposed to be able to spend it on. I get that, but if they're going to give you the money, give us the money. Let us spend it throughout the course of the school year.
Yeah, the problem that they keep coming back to, Alex, is they say that the deferments kick in January, and that's going to send a lot of districts reeling, and they're trying not to confuse the 2.
Well, I'm sure that they don't want districts to not spend this money and use it to, help them get by in a deferment period. But the logic from the state and the feds sometimes doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, what I was told was that they didn't want to confuse the 2 because a district could go out and purchase one-to-one computers and then have to lay off 10 teachers. That's probably not a good PR move.
Yeah, I get it. let's see, public comments for any items that are not on the agenda.
Yeah, I had a question about a cap on independent study. Is there a cap on it if the student is unable to get online?
The number's 25. And so if we have more than 25, we either go to additional staff or look for an additional way to deal with it.
So currently I'm understanding that it's full. And so what is our plan?
Well, there are a couple plans. One is, I think you saw on the list of things I put on this funding, was to hire additional staff to do independent study.
Do we
Right
have
now-
people waiting in the wings? Do we have people waiting in the wings to get on independent study right now?
Right now, I don't believe we have anybody waiting. I think our rush is going to come when we try to go back on site. That's where I'm most concerned about. I think we're pretty good right now. We're high and our numbers are full at independent study, but we're not over full. I think our issue is going to be when we try to go back on site, we're going to have a group of parents who will go, I would rather be on independent study than in the classroom. That's where we're going to have our problem. That's why the staffing for that's why I have it as one of my priorities for the plan we do with this funding. I do actually have people available to do independent study who we can use, who are available. That's not as hard to cover as it is to get somebody in the classroom.
Okay.
So one last thing, because the offices are saying it's full, and I'm hoping that you spoke to a family that I had of 3 students that were needing in, but couldn't get in this last week.
Can you email me who the family was, Amy?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Because I have so many conversations. I'm not sure if I've met them or not.
Okay.
It sounds familiar to me, so I'm going to guess yes.
Yeah, because the offices are telling people it's completely full, and that was as of Tuesday of last week.
Yeah, and that was not correct, by the way. I corrected that with them.
Okay.
But send me the name of the family. I want to make sure we accommodate them.
Will do.
And then, Mark, if there's any chance you can explain the other with independent study and other options, what would be the other options that we'd be pursuing with independent students?
Well, if they're 9-12, an option would be to look and see what openings there are in the high school schedule. Could we combine any classes? For example, if our high school numbers are pretty low in a lot of our sections, we could combine some of those. We have some retired independent study teachers who have asked if they could do it. Independent study can be done multiple ways. I have some admin. Jeff is doing some independent study with the kids who we consider to be high needs at Sanhedrin, and not because they can't do it academically, it's just motivationally. And so they're starting with Jeff. So
technically, Jeff can't do that. That's a violation of our contract because he's an administrator.
Well, at this point, I'm trying to get our numbers balanced out. So I don't see options. I can always run out and hire somebody, but that's going to be more money out of the coffers. So, and I guess you'll need to send me that in the contract because I don't remember reading that anywhere.
It's in the contract you have.
Then you'll need to send it to me.
All right, we'll be talking more, I guess.
Fantastic.
Anything else? Public comments for items not on the agenda. Okay, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
All right, thank you.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, I move that we adjourn.
A second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Try to stay safe and hopefully,
Aye.
thank you, Bob. hopefully everybody stay safe and kind of avoid this nasty air if you can.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Agree.
Good night.
Good night.